Hi, Blast Pop here. Today I have a copy of MBT, the second edition by GMT Games. I had acquired this from somebody else. It's a new copy, although the box is kind of beat a little bit in a couple places. It's got some tape on it and tape being ripped off, and it's kind of damaged it a little bit. But I have what essentially is a new copy of the game. It's unpunched. And as you can see, it's been damaged here a little bit, as well as on the back here some. Anyway, that's not really important. But what I do have, it is important, is on the inside here. And included, and this game is fairly complex, not difficult to deal with. Now, this game originally appeared in its earlier iteration in 1979 by Untitled Games. Now, with that game, it was a simultaneous movement game, and you had your orders out for all the units at one time, and then you execute them and see what kind of happened. What the designer James Day has done is he's taken that concept and used order markers, and you can give orders to formations and individual tanks and units and that kind of thing. And it works effectively with a minimum of fuss. You don't have to plot individual hexes of the types of moves, so it takes the paperwork out of it. Additionally, the rules have been upgraded to incorporate those changes, and also more design state-of-the-art. So, there's quite a few additional things that didn't exist in the past. So anyway, included is an extensive rules book, at least 3 sheets of counters, charts and tables, unit cards, and now we'll proceed looking into what is included in the box here. So the unit cards here, and they're wrapped in these little sleeves. This game's been looked at obviously before. You have the various units or the individual pieces of equipment. So here, for instance, an SU SM2, or it's a T-72 AV. That's the identifier. It's the Soviets, the type of unit armor, and the type of armor, and it's broken up by offensive information. And then you got the ammo type, and you got your penetration factors, and then you got defensive information, so if these units are being attacked, how it corresponds and reacts to what's being done to it from the enemy. And on the opposite side is actually a different unit entirely. T-72BA is an example. And for each type of unit in the game, you get a card. So as an example here, you have some crew-served weapons, and what they how they perform. You need less information than a tank. Squads have squads and sections. Here's another example. And both sides have this information included. You even have helicopters. In this case, a AH-64 Apache. So we've got cards mixed in here. U.S. crew-served weapons, as an example. And you get four packs of these. And here's some more. All kinds of units of varying characteristics and capabilities. There's a lot of them, and they're really nice, heavy stock too. They're thicker than some counters are, so they'll stand up to the repeated usage and play. It's hard. And so the entire stack of unit cards that you get in the game. So there's a goodly number there. You get a series of maps. I'll put those aside for now. The counter sheets. Right here. Again, they're about the same thickness as the individual cards are for the units. And actually, too, in this first one that I had shown you, on the back, there's different units represented. So you need to be careful how you sort these, and carefully do so you can find them easily, even aircraft. Markers for command markers, so that these are the orders that I alluded to that you issue. You reveal them. You got anything from fire to move, overwatch, and based on the initiative, who shoots first and moves first is determined by that initiative. So it's a pretty wild ride, because I've played fairly extensively the 1940s World War II version of Panzer, the original Panzer. And actually, I stand corrected. MBT really originally wasn't published by Yakinto, it was by Avalon Hill, but the system, the Panzer system, goes back to Yakinto. So I want to clarify that if I misspoke. Here's some more markers, plenty of system markers. American forces. You can freeze these if you want to. If I recall correctly, it's track movement, speed, for cross-country and various forms of road. Again, I'm trying to remember what that was. It's been a while. And the Soviets, you have basic game rules, which is nicely illustrated. Plenty of illustrations, and includes all the basic armor functions and combat functions to play the game, with the most basic set of rules that will allow you to learn the system in a somewhat easier way than trying to add all the rules. Nice glossary. Your terrain effects chart, or actually just your terrain identification key. You have a playbook, and you have your advanced game rules. Now this is where the real meat of the game can be found. An extensive table of contents, which runs about 6 pages. Tells you how much there is. 70 some odd pages of rules. And then you just add the advanced rules, and then the optional rules as you can add them and as you so desire, and your level of interest. And then further on, you have an advanced sequence of play, different effects like mines, ditches, formations, commands, and formations for command purposes, actually. And this goes on and on and on. It's very logically done and simple to implement. It's not a difficult system. Just explaining it takes a fair bit of effort, as you can see here. And being so nicely illustrated, it certainly takes more pages. You also have your optional rules, very nicely. You can add into that as you so desire, as I mentioned before. You can add night fighting, anything you can think of. Nuclear, biological, chemical rules, everything that you might want, either included in a scenario or of your own devising. It's here. You have a playbook. This includes your formations, orders of battle, a little bit of history going back to September of 1987, which is the time they posit for the breakout of this war. You've got your setups for your various formations, what each of them composes. So, for instance, a U.S. Heavy Brigade goes through and tells you exactly what you need and expect, and you can take units in and out and use them to your desire to create a scenario as you want. And it goes on. Point values and unit summary charts that give you additional information as to like point cost. So say, for instance, if you were looking for a Soviet BMP 1P, it'll tell you how many points it costs, whether it's elite, seasoned, veteran. It tells you the cost for any given unit. So if you're playing a point-based scenario, you're good. We have numerous scenarios here. This is scenario 4. Here's your order of battle. It tells you your point cost. So if you wanted to rebuy the forces and play the scenario with a similar setup and conditions, you can do so. Your map setup. This scenario happens to contain 5 maps. And likewise, other scenarios give you the information you need to play them in a similar manner. So included in the game and towards the end are the bigger scenarios, the ones that you've had the opportunity to learn from your earlier smaller battles and losses. You have 10 scenarios. And then you have some handy charts on the back of the booklet, as well as a formation summary to keep track of information. So there is some paperwork and paper keeping. 4 dice that are included. Your combat charts, so each player gets one of these 11 by 17 charts. And your terrain effects, spotting, you have a handy sequence of play here. And on the back, a number of your go-to charts. So in here you have your combat results tables, modifiers for given situations, and then you determine what happens, whether it's from armor piercing or small arms fire. And you've got modifiers for general purpose and armor piercing here, and it all feeds into this charge here, if I remember correctly. Charts to keep track of your turn, forces that are hidden, places to store units when stacking gets heavy, one for each player. And while typically one-sided, these type of charts are used during play, but they do have information as to what all those combat unit cards represent. for each of the various combat units for the various styles and varieties of them. So you can see what is included there. Further, they have similar for leg units. And vehicles. And another chart, which is identical to the first for your combat results player aid card. So, then we have the maps. And this is one of the more curious configurations. These maps are fairly small, fold out. They got many folds. They don't fit nicely, say, to the size of a box. You know, so they're folded multiple times. They're back printed, so you have a separate map. So that means you can't use the same map in one configuration with the map that's on the back side, as an example. So this map number 8, you won't have a scenario with map number 7. So either that, or you have to buy a new set of maps to accomplish that special requirement. Now there's one. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maps back printed. So that gives you 10 unique playing surfaces to be used in combination with each other. So it's geomorphic, and I suppose isomorphic if you want a small map battle with just one map. Again, your various elevations, this being lower, and various types of woods of heavy forest, and roads, groves, if that's the proper term, brush or rocky outcroppings, field. The one negative I have with these maps is because of the weird map size, some of the map situations feel a little contrived and don't feel as natural or as random as you might expect to see them in the real world. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you have the game or buy the game, you'll see what I mean. Or maybe you can even see here, and I can't put my finger on exactly why, but for instance, this hill kind of is just managed to get squashed into this little bit of number of hexes on the map. It doesn't seem as natural as it could. And again, this map, which is map number 1, kind of suffers from that same syndrome with the grain around this hill and outcropping. It all has to kind of fit onto a map. The map style is simple. Some people have complained that it's too basic and isn't enough art for them, but I found that typically that with a game you want your counters, which in this case are the beautiful counters that we have here, to be the stars on the board, and less so the terrain, so that that way they don't clash with each other. There's also, the counters are pretty big when it comes to the vehicle counters, and they kind of oversize the map a little bit. The counters oversize the actual hex size on the board. So they're, in other words, they're almost a little too big for the hexes in some cases, but it doesn't prove to be a problem, at least in the original Panzer game, which uses the same size components. And then finally, we have the final two-sided map here. But you can have some serious fighting in this town here. Looking forward to doing some of that. And then again, another hill building complex that is kind of squashed or crunched into the available map area. So that is a brief rundown of what's included in the box. Now, what I've taken the liberty to do is they have a live or living rules online. So I've downloaded these, printed them out. I have a double-sided printer. It prints pretty well. So I've bound them with a normal stapler. And unfortunately, these will be used, and the ones included with the original game will be unused, but at least I'm playing by the latest rules and latest version of the game. So that's an advantage. And they also do that same with the Panzer game as well. So you can download the latest information and incorporate all the game errata. Okay, this has been Blast Pop with his look at MBT by GMT Games. Please subscribe and like. Thank you. Bye.